video, I'm going to take you through how I transform this TV unit. First, let's check out what we're working with. It's a beautiful solid piece of timber, even inside the drawers is timber, as you can see here. So let's start working on it. First thing we need to do is give it a sweep. There were so many spider webs in it, it was disgusting. Anyways, got my broom out, gave it a bit of a sweep, and then moved on to the next step. You need to give the piece a good clean with a degreaser. So I just grab a rubber glove, get some of the triclinium, put it in water, and dissolve the crystals. It can be harsh on your skin, so that's why I recommend the rubber glove. Once you've got your mixture all together, you're going to get a sponge out and you're going to start cleaning the piece. Just start wiping away all of that dust and all of that grime over the piece as you're working through. Now to remove the existing hardware. You can do this with a drill or a screwdriver. All you need to do is unscrew the screws at the back and then take the hardware off the front. Time to put your safety gear on, so you're going to need some safety glasses, earmuffs, and a mask is good too. For this piece, I decided I wanted to have the top as raw timber. It had such a beautiful timber grain. So I started stripping the top off with my belt sander. I find it much faster to strip off with a belt sander, and I just take the top layer off, as you can see here. This is what it looks like once I've finished sanding with my belt sander. You'll be able to see there's still quite a lot of dark patches, but when you're using a belt sander, it can put straight lines on your piece. So I don't know if you can see here, but you can see that there's some indents in my timber. I don't want to go too far with my belt sander, so I clean it up with my Orbital sander. This is an Orbital sander which is going to then help get that top of the stain off without having to put any marks onto my timber. I'm then going to do the same thing along the front. I also wanted the front of the drawers stripped, and so I use my belt sander, but you've got to be careful and hold it still when using a belt sander. I find it much easier to do the sides of the drawers with my battery Orbital because it's so easy and portable to move around and get into those little small areas. Once all the old stain is stripped off, you're going to make it buttery smooth. So here I'm using a 240 sandpaper so that I can make a nice smooth surface, and I just check it with my hand and make sure it feels nice and soft. Sadly, the sanding's still going on. Anyways, now it's time to scuff sand the entire piece so that I can make sure my paint's going to adhere. This bit was nice and quick, thankfully, so just rubbing over the entire piece with the sandpaper. Cleaning up the mess is always brutal, but I had a bit of a dance break in between. And then back to the mundane task of cleaning up. Before I get a whole lot of comments about it, yes, I am intending on getting a dust extractor very soon. Cleaning the piece. I need to clean the piece again, so the same process, get my degreaser and clean the entire piece up. I want to mask up the timber sections that I want to keep separate. So what I'm going to do is get my masking tape and try and get it in a nice straight line. I'm then going to get my razor blade and cut the edge off so that it's right up against the edge. Applying the primer. I usually like to work with a grey primer because it's easier to cover over it and get a nice solid coverage. So here I'm just applying the primer. I paint the outside with the paintbrush and then roll the centre. Paint! I just love watching the paint dip into the tray. It's really therapeutic for me. So for this piece, I'm using a sage green. I like to use a combination of a roller and a paintbrush, and I do the same thing as I do for applying the paint all the time. I'm going to paint the edges like a picture frame and then roll the center. I roll the inside of the piece and the outside of the piece so that I've got all of the spots that I want to have painted done. This is a nice close-up of how I'm going to apply. So I'm going to use my roller, roll back and forth, add some more to the roller, making sure I don't have too much paint on my roller, and then fill in all the spots up to the edges where I've used my paintbrush. Can actually be quite tricky to get into some of the little grooves, so I have to get down nice and low. I wanted to add something a little bit unique, so for these pieces I decided I was going to add some stenciling on the side of the drawers. When you're refinishing furniture, you really want to come up with something unusual that people can't buy in the shops. So for this piece, this is what I decided to do. So here I've got my stick and style stencil, and I'm just going to use my paintbrush to apply the paint into the stencil. I don't want to have too much paint on my paintbrush, and I just want to work through it slowly so that I'm not pushing the paint too deeply into the stencil, and that can cause bleed through. I find stenciling a really nice way to add a little bit of a unique point of difference. Then back to painting my piece. So I'm going to apply a second coat to the entire piece, painting the edges, painting the middle with my roller, trying to get a nice smooth finish so that I've got a crisp, clean look. Painting's finished, you're going to remove the masking tape, hopefully for a nice clean line. If you don't have a perfect line, you're going to get your sander out and run along the edge to get rid of any bleed through that may have come through. Don't feel bad if you get a little bleed through. It happens to all of us. So sometimes I get out a little piece of sandpaper and I use a hand sandpaper just to get rid of that on little hard to reach areas. I didn't paint the inside of the drawers, but I wanted to get them nice and fresh looking. So I decided to apply a wood butter. Wood butter just helps to brighten the look and feel of the drawers. So I just get a microfiber cloth and I apply the wood butter, rub it into the timber to make it nice and oiled. Over time, timber gets quite dry, so it's really good to add a little bit of life and a little bit of moisture back into the timber to really bring it back to life. Also apply the wood butter over the top of the stencil, as it can also act as a top coat and protect the paint. You'll be able to see here what the difference looks like. You'll see that the piece that has the wood butter applied has a much more vivid look, and the timber has really been brought to life versus the dull look of the one that doesn't have the wood butter. I need to add a whitewash to the timber because I want to lighten my timber on the top. You can mix a whitewash with any existing white paint you have and water. All you do is add the water and the paint together and mix it up. Usually about 50-50 I like, so 50 parts water, 50 parts paint. Apply the whitewash to the piece. So you're going to paint along with the grain and apply the whitewash and then wipe back any excess with a microfiber cloth. You need to work reasonably quickly and don't leave it too long, otherwise you can end up with little paintbrush lines. You're going to do the same thing on the drawer fronts if you've left them exposed timber. Anywhere that you've got exposed timber, you need to whitewash so that the timber all matches nicely. Here I'm going to show a little example of how I wipe it back with the cloth. Literally just wiping across with the grain to remove any excess. You've finished top coating and you've let it dry fully. Do not apply the top coat until it is fully dry. You're going to apply a top coat. For this piece, I used a polyacrylic top coat. So I put it into a tray, tip it out, and then I'm going to wipe it all over my piece with a sponge. I want to apply new hardware. So I've got snap off screws. I'm going to snap them off to the length that I need so that I can fit them through my drawer and attach to my handle. Most new hardware is really easy to apply. So all you need to do is hold the handle on the front, get the screws at the back, screw them into the handle, and then tighten them with a screwdriver. Sometimes I use my hands to tighten them up a little bit first before using my screwdriver to help hold it in place. You can easily speed this process up with a drill, and I usually do use a drill, but I wanted to show you that you don't need a lot of tools to be able to do this. Ta-da! All finished! Yay! Let's carry it inside and stage it so it looks super nice. Staging the piece nicely to take photos is going to help sell the piece because you're showcasing its full potential. This is what it looks like. Pretty awesome, hey? I'll just let you admire the end results. If you love this video, don't forget to hit like and subscribe.